Have you ever asked yourself that honestly, do you really know how to hug a woman so she remembers you? Or are you just doing the same awkward, forgettable thing every other man does? Because here's the brutal truth. One wrong squeeze, one nervous pull, and you're already erased from her mind. But one perfect, measured response, and she'll replay that single hug in her head for days, maybe weeks, wondering what it was about you that felt different. If you stay with me for the next few minutes, I'll teach you the exact psychology and stoic presence that turns a 2-second embrace into an imprint she can't stop thinking about. Whether she's walking home, through London, stuck on the subway in New York, or lying awake in a flat in Manchester. Miss this and you'll keep getting ghosted and forgotten. Learn it and you'll live in her thoughts rent-free. 1. The first impression of a hug. The first impression of a hug is far more powerful than most men realize. Imagine this. Daniel, a young man in London, walks into a gathering in Soho. The lights are low, people are laughing, and music is playing in the background. He's introduced to Olivia, a woman who immediately catches his attention. When their arms meet for that first hug, it isn't just skin against skin, it's energy against energy. And in those few seconds, Olivia's subconscious makes a decision about Daniel that could shape everything that follows. A hug is not a handshake, and it is not a casual pat on the back. It is intimate. It involves closeness, warmth, and subtle communication that words cannot capture. When a woman hugs you, she isn't just thinking about the gesture. She is feeling the essence of who you are. Women are natural detectors of energy, and they often make judgments faster than men do. In those fleeting moments, she is scanning for confidence, calmness, or insecurity. If Daniel had been stiff, Olivia would have sensed his nerves. If he rushed to pull away, she would have thought he was uncomfortable with closeness. If he held on too long, she might have felt he was needy or trying too hard. These signals are powerful, and once a woman's mind labels you in a certain way, it becomes nearly impossible to undo that impression. But here's the key. Stoicism changes everything. A stoic man isn't swayed by the rush of emotion, nor is he desperate to impress. He doesn't cling, he doesn't shrink back, and he doesn't overthink. He stands calm, centered, and fully present. That's why women remember a stoic man's hug. It feels steady, unshaken, and different from the chaos of most men. James from New York once told me about a night at a rooftop bar in Brooklyn. He met Sarah, and though they spoke only briefly, their goodbye hug became unforgettable. He didn't squeeze her tight, and he didn't pull away too quickly. Instead, he let the hug happen naturally. His breathing was calm, his body relaxed, and when he released, it felt easy, not forced. Hours later, Sarah texted him, saying she couldn't stop replaying that moment in her mind. It wasn't because of the conversation, but because of the calm confidence he carried in that small gesture. This is what makes the first impression of a hug so important. It communicates far more than your words can. A woman doesn't consciously analyze the hug, but her instincts tell her if you are steady or nervous, secure or insecure, present or distracted. Think about Olivia's experience. She may not even be aware of how she's processing Daniel's hug, but days later when she recalls that moment, she will feel the energy he projected. If it was calm and confident, she will remember him. If it was needy or stiff, she will have already forgotten. This is why Stoicism is so crucial for men in these moments. A stoic man's presence isn't shaken by whether she approves or disapproves. He knows he cannot control her reaction, but he can control his response. He can breathe steadily, be aware of the moment, and allow the hug to exist without forcing it. And that alone makes him unforgettable. So the first impression of a hug is not about how tight you hold, how long you stay, or how much you smile. It is about what energy you bring into that moment, and that energy can define whether you remain in her thoughts or vanish like every other man she has met. 2. The psychology behind her hug. Now let's dig deeper into the psychology behind her hug. Women don't hug the same way men do, and they don't interpret hugs the same way either. For men, a hug might simply feel like a greeting, polite, warm, maybe even automatic. But for women, every hug is emotional communication. A hug is her subconscious asking, "Who are you really?" Take Emily in Los Angeles. She attends countless parties and events, meeting dozens of people every month. She hugs colleagues, acquaintances, and strangers. Most of those hugs are instantly forgotten, blending into the background of her social life. But every once in a while, she experiences a hug that stays with her. Not because the man was exceptionally handsome or said the perfect words, but because his hug carried an energy she couldn't ignore. Here's the truth: women are biologically wired to read emotion faster than men. Their instincts develop this way for survival, to sense danger, detect sincerity, and recognize strength. When you hug a woman, her mind and body scan for signals. Are you tense? Are you anxious? Are you calm? Are you needy? She picks up on all of it without thinking. If you hug her, while your shoulders are stiff and your body awkward, she feels your discomfort. If you pull away too quickly, she senses that you are afraid of closeness. If you linger too long, she feels that you're desperate for validation. But if you hug her with quiet confidence, steady breathing, calm posture, relaxed energy, she feels safe. She feels something rare. Michael from Toronto once shared an experience at a dinner party. He met Chloe and they barely exchanged more than a few words. But at the end of the night, as they hugged goodbye, he simply allowed the moment to happen without rushing. His breathing was calm, his arms strong but not overbearing, his presence steady. Chloe later admitted that she couldn't stop thinking about him, even though they hadn't had a long conversation. The psychology of that hug had left its mark. This is why Stoicism is so powerful in these moments. A Stoic man does not let his nervousness control him. He does not overanalyze what the hug means or how she might judge him. He controls only what he can: his presence, his breath, his energy. And because he is calm, he communicates something deeper than words ever could. Strength without aggression, calmness without indifference, closeness without desperation. When Emily in Los Angeles experiences this kind of hug, it unsettles her in the best way. She may not even fully understand why, but she feels drawn to it. She will replay the moment, compare it to other men she has hugged, and wonder why this one felt different. And that difference is what keeps you in her mind long after you've gone. So the psychology behind her hug is not about romance or seduction or strategy. It's about presence. It's about energy. It's about what you silently communicate in those seconds when words don't matter. A woman doesn't remember every conversation, but she remembers every feeling. And if your hug leaves her feeling safe, steady, and curious, she will never forget you. 3. Reading her intentions through the hug. Reading her intentions through the hug is an art, but it is also a test of awareness. Most men miss the signals because they are too caught up in themselves, thinking about whether she likes them, whether they should hold tighter, whether they should pull away first. But Stoic men, they observe, they watch, they feel, and through that calm observation they read the hidden language behind her hug. Take Jack from Manchester. He had always been the kind of man who rushed through social interactions, always overthinking every touch or gesture. But one evening at a cafe near Deansgate, he met Sophie. She hugged him in greeting, and for the first time, he stopped thinking about himself and started paying attention to her. The hug was warm but brief. Sophie's body was angled slightly sideways, her shoulder pressing against him, but not her chest. Her arms wrapped lightly, not firmly. Jack realized in that moment this was a polite hug, not an intimate one. She was friendly, yes, but she wasn't ready to open herself emotionally. That awareness saved him from misinterpreting her signals, from pushing too fast, from making a mistake that so many men make when they assume too much. Women hug differently depending on what they feel toward you. A sideways hug often signals formality. She may like you, but she doesn't yet trust you enough to bring her full self close. A firm two-arm hug that lingers a second longer, that's deeper interest. If she presses her body against yours naturally, without hesitation, that's comfort. If she squeezes tighter than expected, that's playfulness or excitement. If she barely taps your back, that's distance. The key is to be aware without being needy. Stoicism trains you to observe with calm curiosity, not with desperate analysis. You are not clinging to every second, waiting for her to validate you. Instead, you are reading her intentions the way you'd read the weather, calmly, without judgment, simply taking in the signals she gives. Olivia from New York once admitted that she tests men through hugs. She said, "Most guys don't notice how I hug them. They're too focused on trying to impress me. But the men who notice, those are ones who intrigue me." She explained that when she's not interested, she hugs lightly, almost detached. When she's curious about a man, she lingers. When she feels safe, she pulls closer. Her body speaks what her lips might not. This is why reading her intentions through the hug is so powerful. Women rarely tell you directly what they feel in the early stages. They communicate indirectly through subtle signals. A Stoic man, grounded and calm, picks up on those signals without overreacting. Think of Michael in Toronto. He once misread a hug with Chloe. She hugged him briefly, politely, and he mistook it for romantic interest. He pushed forward too quickly and she pulled back, feeling pressured. Weeks later, he learned his mistake. He had looked at the hug as validation instead of communication. When he embraced Stoicism, he began treating hugs as opportunities to observe, not as victories to celebrate. That change allowed him to see truth hugs are not promises, they are messages. So when you hug her, don't just feel her arms. Feel her energy. Notice how close she stands. Notice how long she stays. Notice whether she leans in or leans away. Notice whether she relaxes or stiffens. Her body will tell you her intentions, but only if you are present enough to see it. And here's the twist. When she realizes that you can read her, without her saying a word, she feels both exposed and drawn to you, because most men miss it, but you don't. That alone makes you unforgettable. Or, why Stoic energy leaves a mark. Why Stoic energy leaves a mark comes down to something most men never master: presence. A hug isn't remembered because of how strong your arms were, or how long you held on. It's remembered because of the energy you carried in that exact moment. And nothing is more unforgettable to a woman than the quiet, unshaken presence of a Stoic man. Let's look at Daniel in London. He wasn't the loudest guy in the room, nor was he trying to be. At a dinner party in Chelsea, he met Emma. They exchanged a few words, and when they said goodbye, they hugged. It wasn't long, it wasn't dramatic, but Emma later told her friends, "I don't know why, but when he hugged me, I felt this calmness, like nothing could shake him." She couldn't explain it, but she felt it. That was Stoic energy. Most men hug with either too much eagerness or too much distance. The eager man grips too tight, holds too long, trying to make the hug mean more than it does. The distant man pulls away too fast, afraid of intimacy, uncomfortable with closeness. With the Stoic man, he doesn't try to control the moment, nor does he run from it. He simply exists in it. He lets his energy flow naturally, steady, calm, and grounded. That is why women remember him. Sarah from Sydney once shared that she could always tell the difference between a man who wanted something from her and a man who simply was himself. When a man hugs me and I feel he's desperate for my attention, it turns me off, she said. But when he hugs me and it feels calm, natural, like he doesn't need anything from me, that's the man I think about later. This is the mark Stoic energy leaves. It creates contrast. Most men are like waves, crashing, too much force, too much need, too much chaos. But the Stoic man is like still water, calm, reflective, steady. Women live in a world of constant noise, of men chasing, begging, performing. When they meet a man who doesn't chase, who doesn't beg, who doesn't perform, he becomes the exception. Take James in Los Angeles. He once met Olivia at a friend's gathering in Hollywood Hills. They spoke briefly, shared a hug, and moved on. But days later, Olivia admitted she couldn't stop thinking about him. She couldn't remember what he said, but she remembered how she felt in his presence, grounded, safe, drawn in. That's the power of Stoic energy. It isn't loud, but it lingers. The psychology behind this is simple. Women are deeply emotional, intuitive beings. They pick up on energy faster than men realize. When you hug her with neediness, she feels drained. When you hug her with Stoic calmness, she feels elevated. And feelings are what women remember, not words. So why does Stoic energy leave a mark? Because it is rare. Because it is steady. Because it makes her feel safe in a world full of men who make her feel pressured. A hug with Stoic energy is not just a gesture, it is an experience. And experiences are what stay in the heart long after the moment ends. 5. The subtle balance between too much and too little. When it comes to hugs, most men get it wrong because they don't understand balance. Either they hug too much, holding on too long, gripping too tightly, overstepping the invisible line of comfort, or they hug too little, pulling away too fast, barely making contact, leaving her with the impression that he's cold or uninterested. The truth is, attraction often lives in the balance between too much and too little. Think about Ethan from London. At a university gathering in King's Cross, he met Hannah. When they hugged goodbye, Ethan was so eager to show interest that he held her for just a second too long. It wasn't a huge mistake, but it shifted the energy. Hannah later told her friend, "It felt like he wanted something from me." That tiny imbalance, that fraction of a second, made him seem needy instead of grounded. Now compare that to Daniel from New York. He was meeting Chloe at a networking event downtown. When they hugged, he pulled away almost instantly, barely letting the embrace happen. Chloe walked away thinking, was he uncomfortable with me? Did I do something wrong? Again, a small imbalance, but it sent the wrong signal. The subtle balance between too much and too little is not about technique. It's about presence. A Stoic man doesn't cling to the hug because he isn't desperate for validation, and he doesn't rush the hug because he isn't afraid of intimacy. He simply exists in the moment, allowing the hug to be what it is. That presence creates balance. Sarah from Toronto once explained this perfectly. The guys who hug too long feel like they're begging for my attention. The guys who hug too short feel cold, but the ones who get it right, they feel like they're in control of themselves, and that makes me think about them later. The balance is simple but powerful. A hug should feel natural, not forced. If she lingers, you linger just enough. If she releases, you release. If the moment carries warmth, you allow it, but you never grip so tightly that she feels trapped. You mirror her energy, but you keep your center. Think about Stoicism here. The Stoics taught that desire and fear are traps. Desire makes you cling. Fear makes you retreat. Balance comes when you are free of both. So in the hug, do not desire her approval so much that you hold too long. And do not fear intimacy so much that you pull away too fast. Free yourself of both, and the hug will carry the perfect weight. Michael in Manchester mastered this after years of mistakes. He admitted, "I used to either hold on like my life depended on it, or act like it didn't matter at all." Once I started practicing Stoic calmness, I realized I didn't need to prove anything. The hug became natural. Women started responding differently. Instead of feeling his need or his avoidance, they felt his balance. And that balance stayed in their minds. The subtle balance between too much and too little is what separates the forgettable men from the unforgettable. And when you master it, women will replay that hug in their mind long after it happens. 6. How to leave her wanting more. Now let's talk about the most powerful part of a hug, leaving her wanting more. A hug is not just about how it begins, but how it ends. If you leave her feeling complete, she forgets. If you leave her feeling intrigued, she remembers. The art lies in ending the hug in such a way that she feels something she can't quite explain. A sense of curiosity, a spark that keeps her thinking about you long after you've gone. Take James in Sydney. He hugged Emily after a night out with mutual friends. Instead of clinging or rushing, he allowed the hug to last just long enough for her to feel his calm energy, and then he let go first. Not abruptly, but naturally, with a subtle confidence. Emily later told her friend, "It was like he knew when to stop. And somehow that made me want more." That's the secret, knowing how to step away at the right moment. Leaving her wanting more is not about playing games. It's about emotional pacing. If you give everything in the hug, all your energy, all your needs, she has nothing left to imagine. But if you hold just enough and then step away with calm presence, she feels an unfinished note. That unfinished note plays in her mind over and over, pulling her thoughts back to you. Think about Olivia in New York. She once described how one man stood out from all the others. "He hugged me like he wasn't trying to take anything from me, and then he pulled away just when I felt myself relax into it." I kept thinking about that moment, afterward wondering why it felt different. That wondering is exactly what you want. The psychology here is powerful. Women are drawn to mystery. When you give them everything too soon, the mystery dies. When you give them just enough and then step back, the mystery grows. It's the same with words, with presence, with touch, and especially with hugs. But here's the key. Stoicism makes this natural. You don't end the hug early because you're trying to manipulate her. You end it naturally because you are in control of yourself. You don't need to cling to her. You don't need to prove anything. You give just enough and then you step away. That calm detachment is magnetic. Ethan from London told me once, "The moment I stopped trying to make the hug last longer than it should, women started looking at me differently. They could feel I wasn't chasing. I was letting them come to me." That shift made him unforgettable. So how do you leave her wanting more? Simple. Be fully present in the hug. Let her feel your calm energy, and then step away before the moment loses its magic. Don't hold on until it becomes awkward. Don't release so fast that it feels cold. Find the rhythm, let her feel it, and then create space. That space is what she will fill with her thoughts of you. Because here's the truth, it's not the hug itself that stays with her. It's the way the hug made her feel. And if she feels intrigued, safe and slightly unsatisfied, she will think about you. She will replay the hug. She will want more. And that's how you stay on her mind long after you've walked away. 7. Timing is everything. Think about the last time you felt something so subtle, yet so powerful that it stuck in your mind for hours. Maybe it was the way someone paused before answering you. Or the silence after a joke that made you lean in, waiting for more. That, my friend, is the secret of timing. When it comes to responding to a hug, timing is everything. Women, especially in places like London or New York, where the pace of life is fast, notice the smallest details. And if you can master timing, you'll stand out in a world full of men who rush every interaction. Imagine this: Olivia, a girl you've known for a while, leans in for a hug outside a coffee shop in Manchester. Most guys would either hold on too long or let go too fast. Both mistakes kill the moment. If you let go too quickly, it feels cold, detached, almost like you're not present. If you hold on too long, it feels needy, clingy, as though you're trying to squeeze validation from her. But the man who understands timing, he knows exactly when to let go, leaving her with just enough energy to wonder, why do I still feel his presence? Timing in a hug is like a perfectly told story. It has a beginning, middle, and end. The beginning is firm, confident, without hesitation. The middle is where you hold just enough to make her feel your warmth, your calmness, your grounded energy. And the end? That's where mastery shows itself. You release slightly before she expects it. Not abruptly, not coldly, but smoothly, almost like waves receding back into the ocean. This subtle detail makes her body feel a loss, a tiny gap that her mind wants to fill. And that's how you stay in her thoughts. Let me tell you a story. Daniel, a guy from London, once shared how he changed everything by mastering timing. Before, he used to hug Sarah, a girl he liked, and he'd always let go too quickly because he feared awkwardness. She never thought twice about those hugs. But then he slowed down. He held her for just the right moment. Not too long, not too short. And he released with a calm smile. Later, Sarah confessed she kept thinking about how safe she felt in his arms, even though nothing romantic had happened yet. Why? Because timing turned an ordinary hug into an unforgettable one. Women are wired to feel rhythm, flow, and balance. It's the same reason a song can make them cry, or why a pause in conversation can make their heart race. If your hug respects timing, it feels natural, masculine, stoic. If it doesn't, it feels clumsy, forced, and forgettable. So next time you hug her, remember, timing isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to release. Do it right, and you won't just give her a hug. You'll give her an experience that lingers in her mind long after you've walked away. 8. The aftermath of the hug. What happens after the hug is just as important as the hug itself. Most men don't realize this. They think the moment ends when they let go. But women, especially women like Emily in New York or Chloe in London, are highly attuned to the aftermath. This is where she decides whether she'll think about you later, or forget you the moment she steps into her Uber. The aftermath is not about what you say, it's about what you project. After a hug, many guys ruin the moment by either becoming overly talkative, trying to cover their nerves, or by acting too detached, as if the hug meant nothing. Both approaches destroy the energy. The man who stands out is the one who remains composed, stoic yet warm. He doesn't rush into words. He allows the silence to breathe. He gives her space to process the emotion she just felt, and in that space her mind starts replaying the hug. Picture this. You hug Chloe outside a restaurant in central London. When you release, you don't jump into small talk or awkward jokes. Instead, you give her a calm smile, hold her gaze for just a moment, and then continue walking with her as if nothing heavy happened. That calm confidence makes her wonder, why did that hug feel so different? Why does his presence feel so steady? Women remember how you make them feel, not what you say, and the aftermath of a hug is the perfect chance to leave her with a lasting emotional imprint. If you act desperate, she feels pressure. If you act cold, she feels rejection. But if you act calm, balanced, and grounded, she feels safe. And safety in a woman's heart translates into attraction, trust, and curiosity. Here's an example. Michael from Manchester once told me about a date with Olivia. They hugged at the end of the night, and instead of pulling out his phone right away or rushing to fill silence, he simply smiled, said, "Good night," and walked away with confidence. Olivia later texted him, "I don't know why, but I can't stop thinking about that hug." What did he do? Nothing extraordinary, except he handled the aftermath with stoic composure. The aftermath is also about energy management. If you rush, you spill the energy. If you overplay, you suffocate it. But if you balance it, you leave her craving more. Think of it like a candle. If you blow too hard, the flame dies instantly. If you ignore it, it burns out on its own. But if you nurture it just enough, the flame continues to burn long after. That's the aftermath of a perfect hug. So remember this. The hug doesn't end when you let go. It ends when she stops thinking about it. And if you master the aftermath, she won't stop thinking anytime soon. Conclusion: the choice is yours. You can walk away from this video and keep being the man whose hugs mean nothing, the man she forgets before she even makes it home, or you can step into the truth you've just learned and use it to etch yourself into her memory in a way no other man can. Because every hug is a test. Every embrace is her unspoken question. Do I feel safe with him? Do I feel drawn to him? Do I feel something I can't explain? And if you fail that test, you're invisible. But if you pass, you become unforgettable. Most men will never even realize they're being judged in those silent moments. They'll keep losing, and they won't even know why. But you now know what's at stake. You now know how to respond in a way that makes her think about you again and again, long after the hug is over. So, I'll ask you one final time, are you going to be just another man she forgets? Or the one man she can't erase from her mind? With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.